All right, so welcome to another episode of the Thrive Success podcast. My name is Daniel Garbutt, your host, and I'm here today with Adam Stamp. So I've known Adam for a couple of years now, and we'll dive in a bit about his journey a little bit later. But for now, I'd like to introduce Adam formally. And so Adam, his life began in 2020 when he had a big turnaround in his life, and since then he's been on this journey of growth, expansion. And it's sort of taken him to achieving some of the things in life now, such as like being a general manager of an EPS company, which is to do with, I think,
polystyrene. Yeah.
Polythyrene.
Yeah.
He's gone from building high performance heat exchangers used in F1 cars. He had a trade in fitting and turning. He's traveled overseas. He's now recently bought a house, become a stepdad, and in discovering his passion in kinesiology. And so since seeing the power of kinesiology and seeing how it supported him, he wants to share that with the world. And he has so much purpose and drive to help others heal and achieve their highest outcomes in life. So Adam, thank you for joining me today on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hi, everyone.
And I'm excited to get into this chat today. Adam and I were having a little bit of a talk prior to starting this podcast, but one of my passions has always been, or one of my deepest curiosities in life has always been, our thoughts, what they can cause in the body or how they can show up in the body, and how, our emotions, our organs, our muscles, how all those things are interlinked. And I myself have had some experience over the years with kinesiology, not practicing it myself, but just, being gone to practitioners and learning about it and understanding it. And it's definitely been a catalyst in my journey to explore some of the things that I have. And so I'm really excited today to be here with Adam, who, you're just really opening the chapters for your life in kinesiology, and already you've learned so much. So yeah, I'm excited to explore kinesiology.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess for people listening, I know kinesiology has been around for a while, yet some people that I speak to, it's not like a common thing yet in society, or it's not, as common as chiropractic or those types of things. So how would you describe kinesiology to someone who has not heard about it or unsure of what it is?
Okay, well, it's pretty much like if anyone's heard of muscle monitoring, so where you'll basically get someone to, I don't know, hold a muscle in a certain position where it's essentially isolated, or it's only got it's the prime mover. And then you're basically asking the body, or the body and the muscle and the person, a series of questions. And then you're looking for responses in the tone of the muscle that it changes. And then that kind of dictates where you go. So it's and it can be literally kind of anything, you can, it can literally be, you need to just give them the muscle a little massage. It could be that there's a neural lymphatics, there's emotion, there's inherited factors. It just can go anywhere. So it's basically just using muscle monitoring to ask the body questions. And then it does involve a little bit of that kind of intuition and I don't know, kind of sensing and feeling where the energy is going. But yeah, it's just this massive web of just you can help people with structural issues. I don't know, neurological issues, learning stuff. I don't know, there can be things with your organs and nutrition and
So I guess one thing just being the what's the word, I forget the word, but just speaking on behalf of people who may not understand the fact of asking the body questions, I kind of I understand what it means just from my experience. And from my experience, I understand that there are certain things in life that'll make the body strong. There's certain things in life that'll make the body weak, and that's going to be reflective in our nervous system.
Yes.
So an example potentially for coming from what I do with people, it's just a reaction or a specific thought pattern towards an external person or thing would cause stress in the body psychologically.
Yes, exactly.
And then so for yourself, like for people who are looking at like how you ask them questions, can you break down or explain like what that process is, or
Yeah, of course.
how those questions can show up in how you use that questioning to work with like a patient or a client?
Yeah, of course. So like, I guess probably the first thing is like, when you think about muscle monitoring, I think it'd be important to like understand that. So there's like little kind of like, tone receptors in all your muscles. And then that links back to your spine. And then that comes from your brain. So then that's defining at all times what tone that muscle is. So even if you're just moving a muscle like this, there's certain muscles that are switching on and then ones that are switching off. So through that, then when you ask the body a question, like using, like, say for example, emotion, you'll see like the muscle might either go really tight or go loose. So you have different stages of stress. So you have like first stage, second stage, and third stage. Like first stage is like your typical, I don't know, say someone like, if they frighten you and you go, huh, and you jump back, but then you quickly come back to normal because I'm actually safe. Nothing's a problem, or your small graze, your body knows what to do. It's like homeostasis. Second stage is when you it's almost like you have too much, like we call it too much tone, like hypertonic. And then, so that way is it's like, it's too strong. So it's like, if you got frightened and then you struggle to actually, I don't know, calm down, like you're actually genuinely scared and you're really uptight. So the nervous system's like, oh shit, you're endangered. Third stage, or when you get like a hypotonic, is when basically the whole thing collapses and it can't even support itself. So that's like over a prolonged period, then that's when people often manifest things like disease. Yeah.
So like, I think that's one thing that like everyone listening could relate to is, even being confronted in life, like you said, like someone frightening you and you feel that tense feeling over your body. Or you could have like someone in your life who, you just have, gives you an uneasy feeling, and every time they come into your mind, you get that sick feeling in the stomach, or even like, you often hear about people who have had a heart attack, they get that intense pain in their chest before they actually go down. And like, those are some physical things that would show up in relation to that stress. And so when you were talking about like stage 1, 2, and 3, you said stage 2 was hypertonic. So is it stage 2 or stage 3 that's a result of like low grade chronic stress? Because I think like in my perspective, like low grade chronic stress is probably like some of the most detrimental to lifestyle in general. Like it's just those small things over time that just build up and build up.
Yes. It's, to say it as like it's an exact fact, I would say yes generally, and then that leads to like third stage or hypo, because it's like often, like when you're in like homeostasis, like your body, like your body's kind of constantly like, it's on like a wave and it has like a range. So imagine like, your body temperature, for instance, like it stays within like a set range. But then say if you go into like hypertonic, it's like, then that range actually shifts up. So then the medium becomes a bit higher. And then, which is like, could be that low grade stress. Say you're at, your work is just like full on all the time. You come home and then, I don't know, it's like, kids and dinner and stuff. And then you're constantly just like bound up. And then that's definitely normally what happens. People are just like really tense. And that's actually when they're quite difficult to muscle monitor, because you're actually trying to get the muscle to unlock, but it will just stay basically solid because the whole time. Yeah. And then like over a long period of time, the whole system basically just collapses. And you see that with people who they are in like a high pressure environment all the time, and then they burn out. And then they take like a month off work or something, and then they like, oh yeah, and then they feel good, and then they generally go back and do the same thing again.
Not
yes. So like, I guess I was just thinking about what you were saying before, like with the questions, like when you're asking questions, like how do you, I guess what we have is we have like I could call it a toolbox, and we have a whole heap of things that we know we can, I don't know, go down different pathways. So I guess like fundamentally you have every muscle has a set of reflexes related to it. So like, you know, there's like a neurovascular point, which is like points on your brain which relate to like the blood system, neurolymphatic, obviously, like I said, emotions. You have origin insertion techniques, so like where the muscle, and then a spinal reflex. So a spinal reflex is obviously what chiropractors generally use, but there is a whole heap of other ones. And then you also have your meridians as well. They come into play. So you'll generally look at those things as like a first like port of call, and then you'll kind of just, and if you can't find, you'll just keep searching from the stuff that you know, basically. So like it you know, what will happen is, say like back in, when was it, in the 60s or 70s, because originally like the muscle monitoring was used to, or not, they used to check kids that had polio, because they could like isolate muscle and go, oh, that one doesn't work anymore. So then they would create like a physio around it to strengthen the muscles around it. And then over time, it was Dr. Goodhart. He was like a chiropractor. And then he just like, there was this guy had a winged scapula, where like the scapula like sits out at the back. And then, I don't know, he just basically couldn't get it down. And he noticed that like how the guy was breathing, and it would change when he was breathing, like it would move positions. And he was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he also touched what was the origin insertion. He was just like, oh, I'll just try touching these points as well. And he goes, oh, then he rubbed them and it went down. And it was like, oh, that's weird. And then he tried it on more people. And then it was like, then he'd heard about like, these neurovascular points, and they relate to organs. And then he was like, he touched, and like that was with someone else, and then their problem went away. And it was kind of like this random eclectic stuff just kept coming in. And it was like, oh, this spinal reflex, oh, when I rub this helps that muscle, it supports that muscle, which also supports that organ. And then I guess it probably wasn't until like I'd say the 80s and 90s, when that kind of pseudoscience, where like that people started bringing that kind of, I don't know, spirituality kind of side. Like when you look at, like they started noticing links to like the traditional Chinese medicine, you know, chakras, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like the different, like the auric fields. And then that's when it's, I don't know, it's kind of pretty much a very constantly evolving like field, and it's still very young. That's one thing that, and it doesn't really have this set regimented, like this is how you do it and this is how you always must do it. Like obviously there's some things you should kind of follow, but like there's lots of different ways to learn it and apply it. And that's where it's like, but then it also, because it's like in life throws you different things all the time, and it's stressful and it's challenging, and it's like, it's not one size fits all. Like because this worked for someone doesn't mean it works for someone else. So it's almost like the concept is like, it needs to be free flowing. It needs to be able to evolve and change to suit what is required, not to be, oh, you always do this for this problem, which is kind of the, I don't know, the typical medical model. Not just, once again, I don't want to sit there and say medicine and doctors are bad, because it's not. It's just when it's relied upon too heavily as like the savior, basically. Like instead of, it's like people kind of come in and they go, and I've done it, oh, I've got this problem, and they kind of give the problem to the person and go, make it better, and don't go, okay, so what can I do improve this situation? Like what's going on? It probably, like, sure, sometimes maybe it is like quite a simple little fix, but I think there's a lot more of that awakening now of people going, you know, they'll ask you, oh, what's going on in your life? You know, like they try to, that's where it's kind of moving more towards, and then seeing how, you know, certain things affect it. Like, I think there's a pretty strong like evidence in the fact that about say 2 years before people have like cancer, there will be some kind of major life event that happens. So it just shows you how the body stores that emotion or feeling, especially when it doesn't get processed, and it starts festering. And I don't know, like even though the body fights cancer all the time, it just doesn't, it stops fighting it. I mean, it just lets it grow. So
yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, there's quite a lot in there that you spoke about then. And I think a couple of the key points that you said just before is like, you know, medicine definitely has its place, I'd say, but it's also, like you said, it's very highly dependent upon now, or we're conditioned or to depend upon it more so typically. And I think from my perspective, it's like I would probably go to a hospital if it was a life-threatening situation, like I just had my leg chopped off and I've got blood coming out of an artery and I need that sort of fixed. And I'm not sure if there's like a lot of other, I don't want to say it's kind of, it's a holistic method that could probably resolve that issue. However, when it comes to like headaches, things like leaky gut, hypotonic muscles, all of those things, I feel much like what you've been speaking about. There's like alternate paths that don't require the consumption of external substance that's probably been man-made to start with in order to take the symptoms away.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get to the underlying cause of what causes it.
Yeah, and then you what you're doing then is like you're putting this, I don't know, drug in, and that has like side effects, maybe not fully known, and then that can cause other problems too. So it can just lead to this kind of like spiral in a sense, like in an extreme case. But it definitely is like hospitals and that, and it's like when you're about to die, you go there because they're going to save you. You don't go to see a kinesiologist or your naturopath when your leg's cut off going, you make this stop. Don't get me wrong, there might be like a place in the sense of like maybe someone can support you, I don't know, from an energetic level, or try to bring you out of that, like being in too much stress in that situation. Like it might help to have a calming voice there. Like say, when you're, I don't know, say Michaela, she's given birth, like it might be better that you're there supporting her than not. Like it might not be that you might be able to fully deliver the baby, but there's always those, like I said, the medical industry, like I think it's great, and it needs to be there, like it does. It's great that people, there are some pretty insane like different drugs and stuff, but I don't think they're like they should be used so freely. That's what I honestly, I'm very rarely will even take Panadol and stuff now, like unless I'm like I'm like dying, but like I also know that there's certain things I can do, and I'm like, okay, so what's happening? Why is this happening? Is it like I'm tired? Am I dehydrated? Blah blah blah. And I'll even, I don't know, you could say do some self kinesiology. Like I'll kind of, I don't know, sense where I need to go, and I'll look for a book based upon my own kind of muscle testing techniques. And I'm like, okay, go to this page. Oh yeah, this emotion. All right, okay. And then, I can definitely relate to that. And just doing those own little things like can just help me. Like obviously not everyone has that available, but it's always like check in to see where's the pain, stop and breathe, and like you'll often know, like it's funny, people go, oh, where's the pain? And they go, oh, it's right here. And you're like, okay, that's fascinating, because someone could have the same symptoms, but their pain's in their head, not in their stomach.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Very interesting. I oftentimes, it's funny, I just have this book here on the desk, so I'll show you. I'm not sure if you've heard it or not, but it's called The Body is the Barometer of the Soul, Be Your Own Doctor by Annette Noontil.
Yes, I believe I've heard of that one. Yeah. I haven't read it, but I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah, and the basis, like this has got much of what we've been speaking about in it. like how different vertebrae in your spine will relate to a different
different organ and all that.
Yeah, different organs, different spiritual growth, emotional factors, chakra points, and like a whole bunch of like physical elements that can be present in the body. And oftentimes like I'll just have that, it's in my bookshelf, and I just often either get called to it by my awareness, and I'll just be like, oh, I'll pick it up and just have a flick through and see if there's something that I'm experiencing in there, and is that relevant to me and how I've been going through life recently. And oftentimes when I'm like coaching a client and they're talking about some things that they're experiencing, I oftentimes pull that book out just to improve my awareness of how I can best support them. And it's really fascinating because like if you're listening to this and it's first time for you hearing that your emotions can show up in the body as pain, or can cause these physical elements, if that's the first time for you to be looking at your life in that way, it could be like totally new. You might think of it as very woo-woo or whatever, as many people do, but I really surprised myself when I first got that book and started having a look and studying different symptoms that I was experiencing, and then looking at like the patterns of behavior and patterns of thinking and patterns of emotion that I was experiencing. And it really gave me a tool to unlock that that pattern in my life. And I'm sure that you've probably experienced the same thing now with like studying kinesiology and like doing the work that you've been doing. It's like it occurs so many times, to me at least, that this stuff is truth, or this stuff works, like this stuff is real. That for me it's like undeniable.
I think I feel like it's coming, I don't know, maybe because I'm more around the space now, but I feel like it's coming into the more people's spheres now. Like
totally.
It seems to be growing. Like I think, like even like things like ice baths and breath work, like it's kind of, I don't know, maybe that's like entry level, kind of, like my thoughts control what happens to me, or like how I experience life. Like people kind of get that. Like and then I just hope it keeps going. And people, because at the end of the day, like even like we're kind of taught this, is like, we don't want people to have to come back and rely on us week after week or whatever it is to like just get through their life. Like you want to help them kind of create their own like destiny and like kind of problem solve and make changes. It's not to say that, you don't want some kind of regularity and stuff like that. Like I see kinesiologists, like I find it's really helpful for me to like help me process stuff and challenges, because life changes all the time. But you want to get people to start recognizing, going, oh wow, like this is happening. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing that pattern again. I better like, I need to make some change. Like that's what you're trying to empower people. Like you're not there to like, all right, come get on the table, just get the elbows in, and and then
see you in a week's time.
See you in a week's time. That'll be $100, thanks. It
reminds me of like the fisherman story about like, you can either take people out fishing all the time, or you can teach them how to fish and they can feed themselves for the rest of their life.
Exactly. Like, you want people to have that self-sufficiency in their life. And I think that's even one thing that really was like, oh wow, like this is cool. Like I never go to a kinesiologist and they go, oh, you better come back in 3 weeks or something like that. Like we generally, like if there's like a complex problem, so like someone's got some major condition like with their liver or something, and it's like you might go, look, this is quite a deep issue, so we're not going to get this covered in an hour to an hour and a half. If you're happy and willing to, can we spread this over a few sessions? This is what I'm proposing. So it's like, but then it's like, but it's up to you. Like, I'm not going to, like, if you don't want to come back, that's fine. And it's also like a lot of it too is like, change is uncomfortable. like sometimes when you bring something to someone's face and you put it in front of them, they don't like it. Or you have to go, not you have to go, but like there's that never-ending cycle of different patterns that we do, like you've said. Then it's like, okay, so I have to change this, but that might mean I have to have a really shitty conversation with that person, and I'd rather not do that. So I'm just going to keep doing this because that seems easier, even though it's actually in the long run it's really hurting you. So
it's almost like that approach avoidance strategy where like they're approaching the problem in their life, but they're avoiding the pain that they have to endure, or the I want to call it like self-inflicted pain, like the hallucination in their mind of what the pain's going to be, like the build up of what this pain is going to be, that stops them from actually taking action. And the thing is, like, the thing that comes to mind for me specifically, and I think you just mentioned it before, was like a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Like how many times do people, and I can put my hand up to this in the past myself as well, like people will avoid a certain circumstance, certain event, voicing something that's truly authentic to them, for the fear of what another person may think, or whether it may offend another person, or if it will cause an argument. All of those stories can come up for people. And I think looking deeper at it, I actually wrote about this morning. It's like that to me is the whole societal conditioning of how we fit in with other people in our society. It's like, we ultimately want to form, like, one of our human needs is like forming connection with others, and we can so conditioned to fit in with society that when it comes to saying something that may go against it or may offend someone else, that fear of losing that connections can be so great that it, like, debilitates someone from taking action in their life.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's like, it's pretty and like you said, like, even like I think everyone does it, and everyone probably like, even I do it sometimes, like, do that tomorrow, I'm not but it's just, once you said, it's avoidance. But then you sometimes go, you know what, nah, this has got to stop now. Like, how much do I actually really, I don't know, care about myself? You know what I mean? Like, and I think what that comes down to is, like, when you look at things like in traditional Chinese medicine, is like that when you do stuff like that, it draws down from your Jing energy, and then eventually they say when you run out of Jing, you just die. Like, so it's
So what's the difference? Because I've heard of Jing before, and from my understanding of Chinese medicine, there's like qi that they talk about a lot, or qi that they talk about a lot, but then there's also this Jing. So what's the difference between qi or qi and then Jing?
Yeah, Jing's like your kind of like constitutional energy, and it's like comes in at conception, like basically when you at birth, or sorry, when your parents say conceive, and it's stored in your kidneys. And then so it's kind of like, imagine, say someone gives you like 100 grand, it's in the bank, and it's like you can just go, oh sweet, I'm gonna blow it. How good is that? I got 100 grand. How good is that? Like, as you do things in life, it slowly trickles down. But like Chi's like your operational energy. So it's like it evolves a lot with your blood and your breath. So it keeps you moving. If you have a good strong Chi, then you barely use any Jing. Basically. So it's like different like energy systems.
Gotcha. So are you saying that you're only born with a finite amount of Jing?
Well, yes, in a sense. And like, it's funny, some people say that you can't like restore it. Once it's gone, it's gone. Some people say that you can, though. But like, everyone goes, well, everyone kind of dies, so it must be finite. So it's like, when you say the cheese, like, you get a job, and then it's like, it keeps like, but sometimes you have to use your savings, so you take a big bit of it. And like, but that can also be like, in a sense, like some emotional event, or you're going against yourself, you start using those Jing reserves. And
So,
then, sorry, go on.
Is like another way to look at it is Jing almost, is your Jing like your willpower? Like your ability to, like, because it's like with what you just said then, it's like you kind of going against yourself, and you're needing to draw upon something deeper than just like a feeling in the body. It's almost like, just say if you're enduring a hard workout and your body's, well, it's really your mind that's feeling physically, your mind's feeling exhausted, your body can keep going, and it's like you're pushing past that, you're digging deeper to tap into a deeper reserve to keep going. Is that kind of like what Jing is?
Yeah, I definitely think it can do that. Like, it's a bit more like, how do you call it? It's like it has a lot to do with your ancestral karma. So there's things that, like, you often see where people almost reenact things that their parents or their ancestors have done. So you get stuff like that. And then it's also, so it's to do with your DNA, and then like kind of your potential as well. But like, you definitely would involve willpower, which would, I don't know if it would be directly linked to your Jing. Like, I don't see it like that. I see that more as like, your will is when you kind of, that's when then there's a next level, when there's your Shen. So that's when you kind of like, so you go Jing, this is like, it kind of creates the life force. So it's like, this is your constitutional energy. This is where you could say that willpower, like you can draw from that when you really need it. And then you build up your chi in your life. So you got it. That's where you do things like they say do qi gong, which is like movement ref. So you get the blood flowing, and then the lungs opening up, and then that way it keeps circulating through the body. So it brings you energy. And then when you then access the Shen, that's like kind of, it's very like, can be very heart-centered. So it's like kind of like a sense of knowing, and you're just kind of, you're almost like, I don't know if you're so driven towards your path, like you just, you kind of undeniably know that is what you need to do, and you believe it so in your heart. Like, and I think, like that's how it's like, because the heart kind of is what's pretty much like it's one of the first organs to kind of really come in, and then it's the last one to die. So it's like, when you're heart centered and you're doing everything from your heart, it's like, I don't know, there's no sense of like, you don't question anything, you just know. But it takes a lot to get to that stage. So you want to be drawing from the Shen. And I think we spoke about it before, about people bringing in light energy and consuming light energy in the tummy. So that's kind of like, I don't know, it's like this, it's like a big funnel just kind of coming in, and then you're able to access energy and not use your Jing. Like, it just kind of like trickles over slowly. But that also comes from, staying aligned, realizing when there's things that are stressful and too much, and going, okay, so what do I need to do here to keep my energy intact? Because it's not like you won't experience stress, but then if it becomes to the point where it's drawing you down too much, that's when it becomes a problem. Because when you have the access to the Shen and through the Qi as well, you're able to kind of, I don't know, I'm going to say like you shift and morph, and you're able to go with the flow of it and go, okay, so I'm just standing in the ocean, I've got hit by a wave, I'm just going to like go, and I'm going to let it kind of push me to the shore. I'm not going to stand there and try to fight it and over air it. So yes, sorry, I maybe I've gone on a bit of a tangent.
I think it's awesome. One thing like for me, it's like, all right, Jing's like constitutional entity. So it's like, all right, well, there's got to be some sort of relation to, like you said, the inherent, is it like the genes that you inherit from your parents, or is it?
Yes,
like
and through your DNA and stuff like that, yeah.
And then it's like, the Chi's like your improved function through like lifestyle choices and like certain practices to improve and optimize your body.
Yep.
Like my understanding is like, all right, well, if you're going to go and eat crappy food, your ability to be energetic in life is going to be severely decreased. If you choose to sit on your ass all day and not go out and move your body, your ability to produce energy inside the body is going to be severely decreased. But
Yes.
then, like, through practices where you're invigorating the body and moving the body and optimizing the function of the body, you've got the ability to be or draw upon a greater level of energy.
Yeah.
And with the Shen, when you were speaking about it, for me, it was like tapping into the heart intelligence. And they say, like, if you look at a lot of ancient scriptures, they always say the heart is the seat of the soul. So when you're speaking, then it's like almost like the Shen is the essence of the soul, like
Yes.
that heart intelligence. And if you were to look at like the Heart Math Institute, have you seen the Heart Math Institute before?
Yeah.
Like they show that there's actually more neurological messages being sent from the heart up to the brain as opposed from the brain down to the heart. And the like the field produced by your heart is, I think it's like is it 10 times greater than the electromagnetic field produced by your brain?
Yes.
So it kind of shows how much more powerful the heart can be. And based off just my own self-study and like courses that I've done in the past, I am led to believe that like through traditional society, it's like we're conditioned into this 5 sense reality when really there's like a greater intelligence that's available to us.
Yes, 100%.
Being the Shen.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
You're speaking about. But one thing that I wanted to touch on was, like, you said that the Jing was related or linked to ancestral karma.
Yes.
So how do you mean by that? Like, is that the adoption of behaviors and beliefs from like your parents?
Yeah, it can be things like that. It's just like patterns and predispositions too. So it's like through your genes, like even though, like, say, you might go, oh, there's a tendency for heart disease in my family or my dad's line or whatever it is. Obviously, it doesn't always manifest, but you have a more likely chance of it. And then because you'll generally, you learn from your parents, so you'll probably do the exact same things as them or very similar. So then that gene will get activated. You know what I mean? It can be stuff like that. Like, for instance, so there was the other night when I was doing practice at college, we were looking at nutritional gateways, and so I'm trying to the glutamate that came up for me, and basically it went down this ancestral path to my granddad. And it was interesting because it was like this thing where it was like, oh, he has this where he has to kind of always go above and beyond, and that's been passed down to you. So sometimes you overwork yourself and like try to do too much, and it was just like you need to like see the patterns in your own life, and then that will help you restabilize the glutamate in your system, like the amino acid. So it was like this, I don't know, it was kind of like a bit random, but then I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. And it was like some event that happened to you 7 years ago. This was when this kind of started, and then you've got to now see the pattern that you're in and how you're following even your own grandfather and the way that he has gone through his life. So yeah, it's just, and it can be kind of anything really, but like you do see that in families. Like it might not be like because your dad did this, you did this. It could be that your grandfather or your great grandfather, and then it can show up every, like they say, about 4 generations. It's how something gets passed down, and it's like the lessons being learned almost. Like it's like that kind of constant evolution and cycle through life. So
yeah, for sure. And it's like it's just about like creating the awareness around those patterns, improving your level of consciousness in your own life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I know that one thing that was said to me is like kind of, it's like when you're, like this is a bit more about like the heart kind of Shen, but like when you kind of, you tap into like, oh, I know who I am, I know what I want, you feel calm and like really just like aware, and then you're able to see the patterns and make the changes based on that. And yeah, so I think it's yeah, I just think it's really cool, like when you look at that stuff. So it's good to kind of understand where you came from, so that like when it comes to your own, I don't know, even your own Jing energy, then and then how you're expressing yourself in your life, and then you from there you can, you know, because you'll go, oh, that's not very good that happened, or you might not even think it's a bad thing. You might not think it's a bad thing that you go and, I don't know, you go and have 20 beers every weekend, and then like, you know, eat Macca's 4 times a week. You might not see it as, you might be, yeah, but I always did that. That's just what we do. And it's like, well, no, like it's not for your greater good. But then when you become open to that, you might see patterns. And like I said, they go, oh, so-and-so has a predisposition to heart disease, or I don't know, breast cancer or whatever it is, or prostate cancer. And so maybe if you look back at, I don't know, your ancestors, you might see patterns in their lives, and then you might be able to establish a connection to that and say, oh wow, I'm actually doing that too.
Yeah.
Maybe,
So
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were saying that, like one thing that pops to mind for me is like, you know, oftentimes based off some of the things I've learned is like prostate's normally linked to like security in life, isn't it? Like level of security, or protection, or something like that in life.
A lot of energy around, obviously, like masculinity there. So yeah, like definitely like that protection, the security. So yeah, like to me that does, like we've only just sort of been learning a little bit about the prostate recently, so I'm not quite up to, but yeah, that to me makes sense. Like yeah definitely.
And then like if you were to look back, even probably our grandparents coming out of world wars and things like that, there was a lot more uncertainty in the world, going through Great Depression, a lot more stress on that front. And who knows the generation before them, I'm not aware. But then like I can see in, you know, my parents or my father's sort of behaviors and his father's behaviors, my grandfather, and how some of those traits or behaviors can play out, such as like you know, fearing that they're always going to need something for a later stage, like hoarding things and holding on, and you know, that whole greed behavior,
Yes.
purely stemming from the environmental circumstances of depression, war. And then if that behavior is then playing out in a person's life, it can lead to something like, you know, prostate. Not saying that
well, yeah, it
you know?
that's what I mean. It can definitely, like it definitely can have that effect. You know what I mean? Like, and that's yeah, it's good that you said that, because it's a definite link. So you have to be mindful, really, where and what you're holding on to as well.
So how would like, can we like diving into the way that our emotions can influence like organs? My understanding is like, you know, we have thought patterns or patterns of behavior in our psychology, which would influence our body to express hormonally in specific ways.
Yes.
Through a lens, it's like, you know, we have circumstances in our environment that pops up, which causes us to feel, you know, angry or frustrated or something. And, you know, that thought will trigger the body to secrete all of the hormones of anger, which then flood through the body to cause the body to express in that way.
Yes. So
what are some of the organs that are linked to an emotion such as like anger?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a good, so say you've got the gallbladder and liver in particular, so they're part of like the wood element. Obviously you can have things like the heart as well, because obviously, you know, the heart will be beating really fast on when you're angry. That I would say they're probably the main three that you deal with. So like, so then say like with like, yeah, like if you hold on to like anger and your gallbladder, you might get gallstones, like developing over that, because what will happen is, say through like, so obviously when you get angry and it's like, you know, pupils dilate, all this kind of stuff, it's often say like all the blood, it goes away from the organs into the muscles, because it's like, not saying in every case, but I'm going to fight now. Like that's kind of the general feel of anger. So then say if you stay in that state, like even like at a subtle level, or you're generally more likely to get angry, like you're heightened, it's like it's pulling the blood away from these muscles. And so like the likes of the liver, like that does a lot of work. Like it's detoxing all the time. So if you start pulling blood away from there, then that can lead to, and then also which links to the gallbladder, because it's putting the bile in there, and then that helps you break down fats. So then you start getting problems because all the muscles are going, they're not getting enough supply, and then they're not being able to move, all the smooth muscles. And then that can then lead to, like I said, like gallstones building up, because if it can't pass through, and then there's constriction there, it can lead to like different types of liver disease. It probably would initially just show up as like sleep problems, because you're not processing the toxins, because you're, I don't know, in like at a subtle level, just angry all the time, you know. And then over time, because then you're not sleeping properly, then that leads to further
complications.
That's the word. and then your liver gets to a point, what's it called, where it gets is it fibrosis or cytosis, where it can't regenerate anymore, and then you know, or you have to remove your gallbladder as an example, which, you know, that's, you don't really want to do that if you can help it. So but yeah, and it's just, I guess, a lack of, it could be just because there's a lack of blood supply to that organ, you know, from that held on anger. And
so with like, would you say that like the different emotions are also linked to the different like chakra points or hormonal centers in the body?
I definitely think there is like some links, or like I would say more, how to put it, sorry, I'm just having a quick the right way to, like, I definitely think it does, because it's all about like the colors too. Like when you look at Chinese medicine and stuff too, it's all like the different colors relate, and they also relate to your different chakra points. So say like, I don't know, like you might have like grief or something like that, and then because it's, and then that can be linked to metal, which is like a blue element, and then that can be linked to your, say, like your throat chakra, because like grief is like kind of can be coming out of your mouth, because you'll be like crying or sobbing, or I don't know, screaming or something. So yeah, it all interlinks in like different ways.
It's almost like if someone hasn't been actually expressing that grief, they're holding on, I'd imagine they'd be feeling quite choked up about it. And it's oftentimes like you know, some of the old sayings that you hear people speak about actually describe some of the functions or the processes that are happening in the body, in my experience at least. Like, you know, walking around feeling like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You know, like things like that. You know, you're making me sick. It's like you're physically making me sick. You know, and these are things that people would be expressing verbally, probably not even intentionally in that way, but yet it's just giving a person clues as to what's actually going on physiologically in their body, caused from the stress or the behaviors that they're experiencing.
Exactly. I mean, I think people are more in tune in some ways than they realize, like, you know, because you recognize, like, you're making me feel sick, like, oh, I'm feeling nauseous, you know. It might not be because of there's like a literal nauseating thing, but in that you get, the body doesn't sometimes know the difference, that, oh, there's actually food here that's making me sick, or like this general person's energy or frequency is just making me ill, because it's just ain't right. So it's definitely extremely fascinating how that kind of that can play out. And it's definitely like, I think once again, like you can have those with the chakras, like, like that, like throat, like lack of expression, or not kind of willing to like embody the peace and truth and stuff like that. And then like it also has like even though it's as much about like talking, it's also about receiving. Are you also like, because sometimes say like right now it's like my throat is more active, but then if I also don't listen to you in turn, like it's like there's I've got an over energy in like the kind of projecting, but like an under energy in receiving the energy as well. So there's all those kind of different elements. And you would know from different situations when you feel like you're talking to someone and they're just like saying things back at you and you're like, what? Like,
did you listen to me?
Yeah, but it depends on the situation too, because obviously then it comes down to like, oh, like there might be like a survival stress response going on in that person because they remember this, or they don't consciously, but their body thinks they're in that situation they were 5 years ago, and I don't know, so someone was yelling at them because they, I don't know, didn't put the dishes away or something, I don't know, and now they've like I think a great expression that someone said to me, I think it was our teacher, goes, oh, you're not always like upset for the reason you think you are. Like there's times and say you'll be angry and then you're just like what, I'm angry at that, and then it's like, oh wait, that I'm triggered because of that reminds me of that situation, and now I'm actually expressing my anger, which I should have, or whatever it is, I'm expressing that feeling that I should have expressed years ago. Like, but I'm not actually in that situation. Like taking check of where you are. So important.
Sure. Yeah, we had a little speak about that before we jumped on here, and one thing that I've been that I was playing with for a little while was like one thing that I wasn't doing enough of was like expressing my anger in a healthy way. And like my understanding, like, or my belief is like everything's got like we live in a dual world, so everything's got a positive and a negative. And oftentimes, at least in my own experience, I grew up in an environment where, I witnessed a lot of arguments, fighting, what I would see is like narcissistic type behavior. And that caused me trauma from a young age. And so for a big part of my life, it was, I repressed expressing that, like anger might not be the right word, but it's coming out now. Like, or expressing that narcissistic type behavior, I'll say. All right. And, understanding that like everything's got a jewel now, it's like narcissism, that narcissistic trait actually allows you to get what you want in life. And if you repress that narcissistic side of you, oftentimes you'll just meet the needs of other people and have all of your needs walken over because you don't just have the courage or the compassion for yourself to voice your own needs. So I feel like in my experience, it's been about like training my nervous system that it's safe to express a healthy level of narcissism. That probably doesn't sound appealing to people on the podcast here, but and it's almost like having a clear boundary for some circumstances in your life. If you've got weak boundaries, other people are going to overpower you in certain areas of your life. And if you've got clear boundaries in your life or clear standards in your life around certain things, then you're not going to get walked over, or people aren't going to like disrespect you in those things or take advantage of you in those things. So that's been like a nice little journey that I've been doing recently, of like teaching my nervous system that it's safe to express myself in those ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of people, like we grow up and we think that, oh, that emotion is bad or whatever. And then, but it's like, they're not bad. They all have a purpose. And it's like, if they weren't there, they wouldn't exist. Like that's the function of it. And it's like your relationship with that feeling and going, oh, like, you don't want to be narcissistic, but like you said, it also has great power. like to do that, like you kind of don't get anywhere if you don't, I don't know, be a bit narcissistic. And that's what I mean. It has its functions. It's just like, and that's where you can look at, is an emotion under energy or over energy? So like, and it can also be situationally, like, you might, in certain situations, you might express anger quite well, but then in other situations, that narcissistic, but then in other situations, you might not, depending on where you are. So it's, so I think it's, really, really, it's good that you've got that awareness. I think that's like a really amazing thing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's because like my understanding of like kinesiology is like always bringing the balance back to the body, or bring homeostasis back to the body. And like, oftentimes it's like in relation to something. I know when I'm working with a client and we're talking about their values in relation to something, it's always in relation to, a certain area of their life. And so like with kinesiology, like you bring person back into homeostasis in relation to a certain outcome in their life.
Yes. Yeah. Like that's kind of, you can go, oh, I just want to feel good, but it's like, like we always try to bring context and like really make it focus so that there is a goal. Sometimes people just need that kind of, I don't know, we just take the survival stress off. And then, because when you bring people out of that survival, or whether it's in a specific, like, I don't know, say at work, you're having trouble expressing yourself, or I don't know, you're over expressing yourself, then like when you bring them out of that stressful state, it's like the body knows, and it kind of starts reorganizing itself. It goes, oh shit, I didn't realize that was happening. And then it starts sending, like, I don't know what it needs to. And then it's like, you might even find that you might start going for different food because it's looking for something like a nutrient in order to support you to get through that situation. So it's just bringing your awareness back to the body intelligence. It's like people, like, they understand that you get a cut and then your body just goes, oh, cool, I'm going to do this. And then you go, oh, what? That's weird. That's not even there anymore. I didn't even notice I had that cut on my hand. But then for some reason they find it hard to grapple with, like, oh, but there's some major problem in me, like, without physically going in there, or like, I don't know, my body knows how to fix it, but they'll accept that on the surface they can see it, and they don't even, like, how sometimes you have a cut and it's like, oh, that happened when I was 5 years old, but I still see the scar. But then other times you won't see a scar. And then so there'll be this, like, because there's like, it's like the body hasn't fully healed, like, through its etheric template. So like, because it has like a blueprint of your whole body, like imagine like an imaginary file cabinet up there, and it pulls it down and goes, oh, this is what this bit's meant to look like. So then it will send all the right cells there to repair it. But then if there's some kind of blockage there or disconnection from the spirit, then it can't come and like repair that fully. Like, if you understand like what I'm kind of saying here. But yeah,
for sure. Like it's like if the trauma was so great, like one thing that I heard once off a kinesiologist that I saw was, he mentioned to me that, if there was a level of pain in a part of your body that was just so great, your nervous system would actually slow or stop the messages being sent down to that area. So that's why some people will, knock their finger or have a severe trauma to their finger and then not have any feeling to the tip of their finger anymore. And so, like, my understanding of what you're saying is, like, if there's been a level of trauma or some sort of association to that specific scar that hasn't healed, then, or that specific cut that hasn't healed, then there'll be scar remaining due to that trauma that still is unresolved in relation to that cut.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm not going to say in every single case, like it is something. And like, when I kind of heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I've definitely had cuts and never, like, they've been quite deep, and I wouldn't even know I had them. So I think there's always like a bit of that. Yeah, like that's what I mean. There's like a little disconnection there, because yeah, like you said, the body will go, nah, not going to deal with that right now. That's too much. Like, I think everyone's done it where you've seen someone where they've got like this massive flesh wound or something, and then like they're fine, and then they look at it and they go, oh, and then they're like, oh my God, my leg.
It's almost like the meaning that's given to it is causing it to
exactly.
heal properly or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you've seen, what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. Wait, it wasn't Wim Hof, was it? No, there was that guy and he ingested
E. coli?
E. coli.
Yeah, that was Wim Hof.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. Yeah. And it's like, it shows you that, I don't know, through like, it's like energy frequency, like you, or whatever you want to call it, mind over matter, you can kind of basically reject something in a sense. Like you can overcome it. Like that should kill people, right? Like it should. And it's like, but when you, and not in a sense of he was like in this ego state.
Yeah.
It was like, he was just like, I don't know, how do you call it? But he trusted, and he knew that his body would know what to do. And it almost like kind of goes, nah, that's not meant to be here, because that's what happens. And then all the cells go, nah, go away, basically squash you.
Yeah. And like when you see things like that, it really begs the question, or at least makes me really curious about what else we can actually achieve in life or with our bodies. I've seen like Wim Hof doing things like that, being able to climb Mount Everest in a pair of board shorts. Stig Severinsen, I'm not sure if you've heard of him before,
Yes.
but you've heard of him. Holding his breath for 22 minutes face down in a pool. That's insane. The amount of time holding just one breath, being able to like regulate his body to that point where he can stay, face down in a pool. Insane. Like, well, it's not insane. It's absolutely amazing. It's it's awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it's like, where do you get like? It doesn't. It's like you almost can't even explain it. Like it doesn't. It kind of defies, I don't know, what seems normal. And I think, but it shows you that it is possible, and that there's some kind of other greatness in us that is just so powerful that we just don't even, I don't know, we have for some reason very limited access to it, like I don't know, like, and you see those instances where people, they have like superhuman strength because, I don't know, there's someone trapped under a car and then they like lift up a car, and it's like, but that person couldn't lift up a car, like they're not strong enough. And it's just I don't know, it's just so fascinating, like when like how powerful the mind is, and then the body, but by the same token, like I think, what is it, every cell, every neurotransmitter, or sorry, I'm trying to remember here, I think it has 0.075 milliamps of electricity. And then it's like when you times that by how many cells you have in your body, like it's, I can't remember, I've written it down somewhere. It's like, it's a lot of voltage. And you just think, so what if you activated all that at once? Like what would happen? Is that like, you hear these stories of like these mythological stories, and so-and-so was glowing. Is that what happened? Were they, is that what it means when they say ascension, or I don't know, God state, or whatever you want to associate with it? It's just like, I don't know. It's just really, it's really, really fascinating. But so I think all in all, though, it's like trying to, like through kinesiology, like bringing people back, I don't know, you call it back online and back into homeostasis or balanced. And then from there, their body starts self-regulating, and then they start making changes and then doing things which best support, I don't know, their growth and their outcome. And it's even like, we're going to do something on it soon. Like, we're going to do a bit about like coaching and stuff like that. And what they find is that, and this, you probably experienced it in your like, industry and doing work with people, sometimes what people want or what they think they want is so much different. Like they clear all the stuff out, they let go of all the baggage and what's holding them down, and they're like, I don't actually want that anymore. That was just my big facade that to be this, I don't know, this person. And then it's even that can be quite confronting for people, because it's like, what do I want?
Who am I?
Like, what, who am I without this stuff?
Yeah, it's so true. Like, yeah, I definitely see that with oftentimes it stems from like a person's need to be loved or accepted, and you know they might be going through life and you know have a relationship with their mother or father where they never experienced that level of love, and when they did experience their love, sometimes it was when they had an issue. So they might have no love or attention or acknowledgement from their parents, but then when they go and kick themselves or injure themselves or get in trouble at school, all of a sudden they've got all this attention off their parents, and they're like, oh, like this is what I wanted. Because ultimately kids, that's what the kids want. They like want that attention, they want that love and appreciation off their parents. And if a child develops a pattern of receiving that when they do something wrong, or receiving that when they've got a problem or an injury or something like that, of people can go through life, or I've seen and witnessed people going through life where they almost become addicted to their problems because they know that their problems are a vehicle to get attention off someone, or get love off someone, or receive care off someone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you know, taking that away can be, like you said, can be confronting, or getting to the source or the root cause of what the issue is in their life, and realizing that they really don't love themselves, and getting them to a place where they love themselves now. It's like, fuck, I don't need a flash car, or I don't need I don't need to have a big life crisis to, you know, have a loving conversation with my parents, or I don't need to have a big flash business to get attention or praise off my dad or my siblings, whatever it may be. So like getting the root problem out of the way, it's like, all right, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. And it's I know that although like from our teacher and stuff, he goes, because you know, like I've worked through with people and they get to that point, and he goes, it's like, oh, are you ready to take the next step? No, that seems scary. And it's like they'll go back to that known state. You know, like he goes, obviously that's not what you want, but he goes, honestly, sometimes people, it's too confronting. Too confronting what you put in front of them, and they can't stand it. Like it's always a lot of that, like it's like the known and the unknown.
Well, it's almost like that that cognitive dissonance that people can experience in that point, because like they go, just imagine a person going like 30 years of their life thinking that the world is one specific way, like they have this internal construct of what the world is, and then they go and do some work, and they realize that, wait a minute, like that's just what I thought life was.
Yeah,
it's just what I thought life was. And like you'd know this as well, like I think one of the deepest parts of our brain, like that brain stem, we're like scanning the environment for threat or no threat, and like oftentimes a new environment is a threat just because it's not known. Whereas like the new environment could actually be the word coming to mind is like the wonderland, or the land that we'd always want to live in, but because it's not known, it's actually dangerous for us now.
Yes, yeah, it's like that.
Just at the first instant.
Yeah, it's like a perception. It's like,
Perception.
You think it's dangerous, but it's like it's definitely not. It's just like I said, it could be your savior in a sense, or your And I think it's always like, and I think what people, just in my experience, and this is something I felt like I did part and parcel, like definitely learn from you, is like kind of go with how you feel, and like always be aiming towards like, how do I want to feel? Like, you know, so say if you get into an environment and it's like, obviously sometimes it could be like it reminds you of something that was really scary and blah, blah, blah. But like checking into that, not, oh, this looks cool because it's, I don't know, it's all shiny and nice. It's like, how do you feel when you're here? How do you feel when you're with that person or whatever it is? I think that's so, like, I've used that a lot the last couple of years, and it's served me extremely well. Just like, kind of like, once again, that kind of comes down to tapping into the heart, like, and trusting that inner knowing, you know, like, it's very important. Obviously, though, it's like I said, it can be hard because you, if you've got all this stuff, it can, like, that internal compass can be completely in the other direction. It's like, I don't want to say that's like written law, but I definitely feel like a lot of people that I imagine that will listen to this and be involved in your space, they'll have that awareness of where, I don't know, kind of directionally, oh yeah, this feels right, or feel right. And I even think even people who are, I don't know, you could say like a bit disconnected, I feel like you always kind of know though. You'll know, and it's like, it'll show up as something just different, but you always know when something doesn't feel right. You know, it's like, yeah. And like, that's what I mean. Like, people, like, they kind of accept, you know, like, I love this example of, like, say someone, like, say when we're talking about chakras and auric fields and astral planes and all this stuff, and even like meridians, it's like, people go, oh, what? Like, that seems a bit weird. Like, what do you mean there's these energy things around you? But it's like, how come, you know, like, someone walks in a room and it's like the room changes. Like, it, like, and it's like a thing. It's like, you accept that you don't have to touch them. You sense their energy, or if they're near you and you're like, oh wow, that person's like, obviously there's other things going on, like, for sure, like, there is like a body language aspect, and it could just be that, I don't know, they might just be really famous, and, you know, but the energy of the room can change, and it affects how everyone else feels. So then, like, accepting that you also have this, I don't know, this field around you, like, probably comes, like, I think from your heart and expands out, is a good thing to become aware of, really. That's what I think anyways.
Oh, definitely, 100%. There's actually a study done, I forget the origin of it, but if I remember before I put this podcast up, I'll put a link to it beneath. There's a study done which, like, they had two monks and they were meditating side by side, and they had their intention focused on the exact same thing throughout this meditation. So they're meditating in the same frequency of one another, so being in tune with the same energy. And they went and separated the monks so that one monk was in one room, the other monk was in another room 10 or 20 meters away. And they had them both hooked up to those EEG machines to monitor the brainwave functions, the brain functions. And in front of one monk, they had a light, and they flashed the light in front of one of the monks. And so that stimulus obviously created a pattern within the brain, or a part of the brain to be fired off. And the monk that was in a totally different room, that had no exposure to the light, like physically there in front of him, had the exact part of their brain fire off at the exact same time. So it's like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah,
we must be connected in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I think that's the crux of it all. It is all connected. And I don't know, it's just, there's even, like, when you look at in the brain itself, like, I was reading this study recently, and they're saying that, like, what they seem to be noticing is that the brain almost seems to mimic the universe. Like, it's almost like a smaller, like, there's all these, you know, different, like, things moving around, like the you know, you got gray matter and like white matter and all that kind of stuff. And then if you look at it in the universe, it's like there's all these other things, and it's like, oh wow, they're kind of connected in a similar pattern, but it's just at like a different level. And it kind of stems of that thing where kind of everything is like a hologram itself. So like all the parts are in the smaller part and so forth, and it's like you can get the whole in the part. It just like it blows my mind, and it's
that's a very deep rabbit hole, Adam.
yeah,
But you know what, I totally get you, and like it's almost like that, like us, we made up of, what is it, like 3 trillion cells or something like that, and they're all existent within us, and there's so many of us that are existent within the universe. And I actually did a podcast with an astrologer recently. Her name's Kerry Redgate. She's up in Brisbane, and she's been studying astrology and Buddhist psychology for like 35 years. And we were having a chat about, so obviously astrology is all about the study of the planetary alignments, and how planetary alignments, and the work that she does is specifically with that and asteroid alignments in the universe, and how that affects the way that a person thinks, feels, and behaves in life. And you know, I was really curious because essentially that's like an external factor that's influencing like a person's life. And the way that she spoke about that was how, you know, all of those planets, just like us, give off a certain energy, and so would the asteroids. And just like the energy from the sun reaching Earth, it's like we don't physically see like lines of sun, or like, you know, this big connection of sun, but the photons from the sun are obviously coming down and interacting on the Earth. And just like that from the planets, and I hope I'm not doing her any injustice here with my explanation of it, but for anyone listening, go back and listen to the podcast. They obviously have an energy that they emit as well, which passes through the ionic field of the Earth, which then goes down and interacts with those different parts of the brain, and they would like be turned on and off based off different occurrences in the universe as well. Super fascinating, like super interesting.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I know, I don't know like a lot about astrology, but it's always like, I think not just like you see it in the newspaper, and you know, someone said, you know, whatever, you're going to meet the love of your life today, or something like, you know. I'm not sure if you've had a reading before where they look at your, you know, planetary alignment when at birth and kind of all that stuff, and it's just like, you sit there and you go, wow, that's like strangely accurate. Like kind of this planet will mean that how you experience this kind of situation, and you know, that will be your lesson, and blah blah blah. And it's kind of like a little guide. And then even further, like I think that kind of comes down to, you know, like numerology. It's like all kind of, you know, there's all these kind of patterns, like, because in a sense astrology is like that, like that planet's there and it's that distance, and then it, you know, creates that number. So it's like all those things, they kind of all like interlink. It's just, and it's, I don't know, it is just really fascinating. Like I said, I don't know too much about it, like so I'm a Scorpio and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's like with anything, and anyone listening as well, like, you know, dive in, like don't listen to anything at face value, and do your own research, and you'll find out what's true for you or not. Like for me, going down that rabbit hole, or I wouldn't, you know, just that field of study with numerology, astrology, and these different alternatives or different ways of explaining patterns in life. For me, it was like there was too many times in my life where this stuff lined up, or this stuff seemed very, very true for what I was experiencing in life. And for me, it's like if something shows up 2 to 3 times, there's something in it. It's worth exploring further for me, you know. And anyone listening, if anything's sparked curiosity within you, listening to Adam and I's conversation, it's like go and explore that curiosity. I think curiosity is one of our greatest gifts in life. And you know, sometimes you know, I like another conversation, but the schooling system and things like that sometimes often try and squash curiosity in people. And I believe that it's one of our greatest little assets. And so if there's any spark of curiosity that's been fired off within you on this podcast, go and follow it. Go and find out where it takes you. Because oftentimes, and Adam, you'll know this yourself, I was speaking about this earlier, it's like all of these little pieces of the puzzle, all of these pieces of the whole get
Yes.
shown to you, and it's like, oh wow, there's way more to this thing that we call life than I previously knew.
Oh yeah, exactly. And exactly, even with like your things that you experience or issues or problems, like it's not just like this one little thing and it does everything. It's just not. It's like there's all these elements that bring in and, I don't know, create your issue or problem. And then you sometimes perpetuate that by attaching a story to it or something. I am this problem. I experience this all the time. But yeah, I definitely think curiosity, it's like we wouldn't be here right now if someone wasn't kind of curious. And we're talking via Zoom and stuff. Like someone was curious, and then it created that, and then it's just all these different things happened. So yeah, it's always, yeah. And like you said, always do your own research. I mean, there's so much information out there. It can sometimes be hard because it's like, what's true and what's not, because anyone can kind of post anything now and say it, and it is seen as a fact above all that. But yeah, I definitely think if you find yourself and you're like, oh, that sounded pretty cool, like do some research into it, or like always question things. Just always question things, because you just like, yeah, just because it's there doesn't mean that that's the truth and it's real. Like, because it can be just like how you experience life. Like how you look at a situation, or it could be just completely different. Like someone else looks and go, oh, that looks great. And you're like, nah. And so it's like changing the angle changes what you see. So yeah, I just think that yeah, life's beautiful. Then even the human body, like I think even understanding how your body works and is really important. Like I would actually love to see more of this done at school, because I think it would actually help a lot of people understand like what's going on. Like I've learned a lot about the human body, and I was just like, oh wow, like, well, that explains a lot, like how everything interconnects through systems, and like, I don't know how that neuron fires and this little nuclei controls this bit of the brain. And then I think it would help a lot of people, like kind of, I don't want to say self-diagnose, because that can be really risky, but it might just help them get through, I don't know, like just certain issues in their life or things that come up, and having a bit more understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I've gained through my experience of self-discovery, you could say, and more specifically when I've because I've had a lot of physical ailments in the body over the years, and being down different paths, and some weren't to the destination that I wanted, and I explored another path. And like through my pursuit of like understanding more about the body, one thing I realized, or made a big difference in what I was experiencing, was like removing the judgment of what it was. And I know, kind of like if I was to reflect on my childhood, if I was to get a headache when I was a kid, it's like a big thing, and oh, you got to take some Panadol, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. And like now, if I get a headache, and it's like, what am I stressing about? Like, let's just take a couple of deep breaths, relax, have a little bit of water, put some salt in it, and it's like the headache's gone. And not saying that that's what you do, that's how you should treat a headache or anything like that, but I'm just saying that when I take the judgment away from things in my body, it's almost like they disappear, or almost like a lot of the things leave just as quickly as they came.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like by children having a greater understanding of how their body works, and how even the stress response in a person, like how their body would tighten up, and the blood flows away from the organs, even that, just that piece of knowledge can totally transform a way that a person thinks about stress itself.
Yeah, exactly. Like exactly. It's so critical. Like, and I don't know why it gets. Look, once again, I don't know why, but maybe I'm more curious about the body, so it might be something I wish I knew. I don't know, but I do wonder why it's not. I don't know. Maybe it is included. I might have not done it as much at school, or it might be too much for kids to understand. And yeah, but I definitely think it would be an extremely valuable thing to to know and to understand, because this is like, this is what you live in. You live in this. Like, it's important that you understand how to take care of it, like, not just from a physical level, but like, an emotional, mental level, and then even like a spiritual level. It's so critical to like to growth and all that.
So. Oh, definitely. 100%. And so, Adam, I know that you're, like, we had a chat before this, and you're still doing some study yourself, but people listening to this, if they wanted to connect with you further or find out more about what you do, like, what would be the best way for those guys to connect with you?
Well, I guess I obviously have my personal Instagram, which I'm happy to have a chat to anyone. I have just recently created my I'm gonna say my kinesiology Instagram. Very early days. But yeah, so what I'll have to do, I'll have to give you all the links for that, Dan, if you want to put that. But yeah, it's like, what I always forget the name of it. It's like,
that's all right. How about like beneath this podcast episode, I'll have some links to where people can reach out to you, and like I think if you've started an Instagram specifically for it, I can link that below for you, and people can reach out, and if they want to explore more of what you do, or even if it's pointing them in the direction of where they can learn some more or whatever it may be, I think that'd be a great place to for like a great touch point.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm still like, I'm in my second year of like a 2-year diploma. So, I'm very interested in, working with all, different types of people. Like, as always, like, I'm still learning. So there's like, I'm not going to sound perfect, but I'm getting there. But like I said, I can always point someone in the direction of someone who is fully qualified and stuff. But yeah, it's even at a very small level, like, just it can really help distress you a lot, and then when you're like that, you can make good decisions. That's what I find. Like, so yeah, definitely, like, reach out, ask some questions. If I'm happy to have people, like, I'm in my room where I can do some kinesiology with people in here. So like I said, and it only, like, it helps. Like, I love the learning through it, like, whether it's certain ailments or, like, you might learn something and I might learn something as well at the same time. So yeah, really cool.
That's awesome. And so just to wrap it up, Adam, like, what are some of the things on your horizon that you're working towards in your career or within the field of kinesiology?
I get, like, from initially, like, I really want to, like, set up basically in my own little business, and just kind of, whether I do it from home or like from a different site. And then honestly, like, where I'd love to go is, like, I'd love to be able to teach it to people. That would be I guess I would say my ultimate goal. Like, I want to be able to share it. I think that's, and obviously still treat people like, I'd really love to be able to get into, like, places like, I don't know, like a doctor's surgery or a hospital, and like, go, oh, these person have these chronic conditions, how can we help them from that kinesiology, like, perspective to kind of heal from this, that's kind of, and creating strategies to empower their life. Like I said, I'm not saying I had anything extreme going on with me, but I've just seen how powerful it is. And this is, like, I've only really been exposed for about 1.5 years. But it's just like, and how you can literally, you can go and get on the table, and then you can just feel like a completely different person. Like, I had this really, sorry, I had this really sore back, and then came in, and then, like, I was like, my back's not sore. And it was weird. It felt like it was like, I don't know, it was doing something weird, but it just, and like, it was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Like, what did you do? Once again, I don't want to say that happens every time, because it's very eclectic, but yeah,
I've experienced similar things as well. Like, go and have treatments and things like that. And I see it as like if a chronic pain or a pain that someone's had for quite a long time in their life can be resolved in a way that, like I think I said earlier, it doesn't require you to be on pain medication for the rest of your life, or like go and get a surgery. It's definitely something worth exploring. And you can even see on other levels, like there's big movements now in sports specific training that are like totally allowing people to, rather than go get surgery, like even in the fields of nutrition and sports specific training, like people are able to avoid or not need to go and get surgery to have a knee replacement, just say, and they can go and do specific exercises now or change different elements of their nutrition in order to not need that knee replacement. And it's like, for people listening, it's like that may be something easy for them to understand initially. And then, what I'm saying is like kinesiology is almost like this doorway where you can unlock many other examples of that in life.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know there was one instance of there was an AFL player. This was someone I met at college, and he was saying that, I don't know, he lost his, like he was doing really well. He lost his mum, and then I think it was that game, he tore his like ACL or something. Like he did some, and he never had any issues. Like it would just kind of came out of the blue, but it was just, he'd been holding on to that emotion, and it was like, no, I got to play. This is what my mum would want. And it's like, and it's just, there's always like these aspects that can be accessed instead of going to the one thing and going, my physio is going to rub my muscle and then my chiropractor is going to crack my back. It's looking at all the other elements, and it could just be, like I said, it could be a guy, like you said, like, through the muscle monitoring, you should go see a naturopath because you need this supplementation, and that's going to help support you, and sometimes it can be that simple, like, and it, like, you'd rather that, like a lot of people I've talked to have experienced things where they had their relatives and they were going to go for some surgery, and then they're like, the day or a few days before, was like I think it was a knee reconstruction, and then they did some kinesiology, and then they were like, oh, my knee feels fine. And then they literally got abusive phone calls from the surgeon going, you've just, conked me out of 20 grand. Like, what do you do? And like, once again, it's not like it always works out like that, but just be mindful that things aren't always what you think they are. And there can be so many things at play that all interlink, just like your body interlinks, like everything talks to each other in some way or another. So and be careful where you put your energy, because that's where the attention goes. So, and I just think it's, create that balance in your life, and then it's like you move with flow, you move with ease, and life's just a breeze.
It'd be super interesting to actually get some data around, just say that specific example you said it with the guy who was actually going in to get his knee replacement, did a kinesiology session, and then no longer needed the knee replacement. It'd be so interesting to get like the data around it, or a scan or whatever it needed to actually see the changes. Because like I guess some people listening be like, oh well, it's just they felt better, but it's like, it'd be so interesting to see the data of it as well.
And because I think a lot of people associate with it's like seeing is believing, right? But it's like what's kind of happening is like, when say you switch the body back online, kind of like I think I said this earlier, like it kind of has this like template of what you should look like, and then it goes, oh, that's not right, so it starts sending all the right information there, and then it kind of realigns itself. Because like, if this muscle or whatever is too tight, if it doesn't realize in the brain that it's too tight, it just it thinks it's fine. That's why chiropractic sometimes doesn't work, because they'll do that, and then the body's like, nah, it was in the right spot, put it back there, and then it it's like you just keep like kind of pushing it back to where it was, creating more tension. So that's what's, yeah, but I agree. Like, I think it's always like, if you can have physical evidence for something, it helps kind of, I don't know, persuade people. And then sometimes you can't. It's like a weird.
I heard a saying once, like if you doubt something, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're going into it and you're doubting it already, it's never going to work for you. And that's one thing that I see, especially in my field, where I'm working with someone on a mental, emotional level. It's not like a physical thing that I'm doing with them. I'm working with them like mentally and emotionally. And if they've got a level of doubt in the process to start with, then it's already flawed.
Yes, you definitely need that willingness.
Yeah.
As like, even as like a training practitioner, I see it so much. If someone doesn't really like want to be on the table, and I've got that with friends and family where they're skeptical. It's extremely challenging. And like, honestly, I step away from that now and go, like, I'm not, if you want to be here, you'll come to me. Like, I'm saying I will be there to support you, but it's important that you walk through that door and you let go of all your kind of, I don't know, predisposition, and just be open to whatever happens. And it might be amazing, it might be not, but by creating a force that's going against it, you're just making it a lot harder. Kind of shows you that you've got all that like built up, whether it's like, I know you talked about judgment, or I don't know, like avoidance or suppression, or there's something there that doesn't want to deal with the problem. So you're gonna fight it. And it's just like, that's why we even do that we have these willingness statements, which we do as part of the process. And sometimes that's as far as you get, because someone just is like, don't want this is not good. Yeah.
I've actually heard of that before. Actually, I've got a friend of mine who's been in kinesiology for like 30 years, and he speaks to me about, he's spoken to me once actually about that instant where he's done that test, like that question on someone, and they just showed up like weak, like, are you willing to work through this problem, or whatever the question, like however the question's phrased, and it was just a weak response. And he moves through that point where, like, at the start he wanted to like help everyone, but then he realized that he can't help everyone because some people don't want to be helped. And so for this specific instant, he says, oh look, I'm sorry that I can't help you with this, but when you're ready, please come back and see me.
Yeah. That's the thing. And it's like, you've got to like that's what I mean. That's something which I've had to kind of work through, that kind of that ego, like you have to help someone. And it's like, you kind of, people got to help themselves in a way, and the powers within them, and attached to an outcome. There's always that attachment to an outcome. Like, oh, like this happened last time, make that happen again. I felt so good. And you're like, it doesn't work like that. Like it's very much a case of, you might not feel good because it might make you feel really uncomfortable. But hey, I can support you. I can support you through that. Like we can talk about it. We can bring up strategies, and we can clear the stress around that. So it's like, there's always a way forward. But yeah, willingness is so critical. Like, I would say, like, don't come to try and debunk, like, but hey, you might want to, because that can also be very rewarding, because when people are very hyper like analytical and, like a bit of a thinker, like this stuff's very like out of the sphere. When someone like that understands, like there's like this spiritual kind of other concept out there, and they get it, they can do pretty amazing things, because they combine the two. Like a lot of the stuff which kinesiology really like took off from was from these like doctors that they were like, oh, what's this heebie-jeebie stuff? And they received kinesiology, and they were like, what? And then they were just like, nah, there's something in this. And then they just put so much research, and they created a lot of material on it. Like Dr. Charles Krebs and what's the other one? But yeah, anyways, that's what I mean. Like, so it's almost like exciting when you can you can see people, and I love when you see them and they get it, or they just go, oh my God, like what? Like even I had that experience for me, because it's always like, you should always question things. You should always be like, nah. Like I know that for me, and it was weird because our teacher said, like, he goes, generally people, it takes them about 3 sessions to like really kind of understand like what's going on, and like that how they can support themselves. And I was like, nah, man, that just seems like some money grab type thing, And then like no shit, it happened to me. I was like, holy shit. I was like, the powers are within me. Right.
What are you saying? It was always me?
Yeah, literally. I created this. I'm perpetuating it. Yeah. So yes.
Interesting. But yeah, Adam, I mean, like I feel like this is a conversation that we could just continue on and on and on based off how it's been over the last couple of hours. But I feel like
all the time I was like, oh shit.
But I feel like I'd love to have you back on the show at some point in the future, and dive deep into some of this stuff. And any of the listeners who have any specific questions, or you want to hear more of something, like please reach out. I'll have Adam's information below this podcast, and if you need to reach out for me at any point, feel free to as well. And it's an opportunity for us to go deeper into a specific area here with Adam. So Adam, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. It's been, loved it.
And like I said, it's awesome to see the direction that you're going in life, and like just how much you've learned as well over the last couple of years, and how much you've expanded and grown. So really, really well done, and hats off to you. And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Thrive Success podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next episode.